Hello everyone. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Instead of giving the typical informational videos that I love to provide for my fellow type 1s in taming this disease, instead we're going to go on the attack a little bit. We're going to do some debunking. I'm going to take a look at this article here and talk about why it's wrong and, have a little bit of fun while we're at it. So, what is this article? This article is titled, People in the Know. As in, the experts, right? The experts. People in the Know. High protein diets and type 1 diabetes. Of course, you can already tell just from the title that this is an article concerning high protein diets, most likely the same low carb high protein diets that I, Dr. Bernstein, and many other very successful type 1 diabetics follow. Before we get started any further, let's make a note of the fact that this article is brought to you by Lilly Diabetes and Disney. Because they're not out to just make money off of diabetic children, right? That's why Disney sells their tickets for hundreds and hundreds of dollars, because they care. That's why Lilly sells their insulin for thousands of dollars. Not because they're making money off of kids. No. Not because that diabetics doing the wrong thing would make them lose money. No. They're sharing this information with you because they care. Moving on. It reads, I keep hearing about popular high-protein, high-fat eating plans could opting for more meat and cheese over starchy snacks and sides make a difference in our blood sugar levels. Of course, that means exactly as it says. Could eating a lower carb diet with more meat and cheese, with less starchy carbs and plants, work better for blood sugars? Obviously, the answer is yes. Any rational thinking person would say that. You'd have to be an idiot to think that cutting back on your carbs would not make blood sugar management easier. And oh boy, here we go. When parents encounter challenges with their type 1 diabetes, for their child's type 1 diabetes management, it can be tempting to look for quick fixes, such as trendy, high-protein, high-fat, low-carb, or Paleolithic diets. Notice the weasel words here. First off, quick fixes. Trendy. As if anyone thinks that low-carb is a quick fix. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. It's not something that you just do for a little bit and stop. That's a quick fix. No, this is forever. No one's saying it's easy. No one's saying it's a magic cure, medicine pill kind of thing where you just pop it and you're done. This takes work. Duh. So, off to a great start. Of course, it mentions right from the get-go, after using such words, that if you steer your child towards low-carb eating, you're taking a risk that could lead to low blood sugar. Oh no. Of course, this is what they always say, without any evidence at all that this happens. In fact, from the studies that are actually looking at type 1 diabetics following a Dr. Bernstein approach, they find they actually have less low blood sugars than most diabetics eating a high-carb diet. Interesting that they'd say that without any evidence. Why do I think my diet needs to be changed? Ask yourself that. I wonder why my kid's diet would need to be changed. Maybe it's because the diet that my kid's on currently isn't working. Maybe it's because their blood sugars are out of control and I'm trying to do absolutely anything I can to fix this. Maybe that's why. Of course, they ignore the fact that most kids' A1Cs are way higher than they should be. Why change anything? Of course. If it's because your child's blood sugars are frequently out of range, get in touch with your child's diabetic care team, as if they haven't done that already. As if they haven't gotten that advice before. If it wasn't helping before, why would it help them now? Of course, here it says, carbohydrates are not the enemy. Well, I guess not for most people. Carbohydrates can be pretty mundane. Not so bad. But for diabetics, for people that actually have to control their blood sugar and carbohydrates affect them the most, yeah, They're kind of a problem, especially when you have a ton of them, which all these dietitians recommend. And I bet, honestly, here's poking fun here. This dietitian here, Megan, is Melissa Brown. Let's take a look at her profile real quick. Ooh! Looks like carbohydrates definitely not her enemy, huh? Ooh, but she's gluten-free! Oh, that's totally, helping her there. Yeah. Definitely, carbohydrates are definitely her friend, right? It goes on further to say, the goal when choosing foods to include in a child's diet is to meet his or her overall nutritional needs and instill healthy habits. Overall nutritional needs. What nutritional needs are being met by carbohydrates? There's not a single essential carbohydrate. There's not a single nutrient that you have to get from carbohydrate-heavy foods. None. Zip. Nada. Zero. What needs? Of course, she doesn't say anything about that. She just moves on as if it's an obvious fact. Kids with type 1 can eat all the same foods as other children. Yeah, they can. But should they?
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
I mean, if kids can eat whatever the hell they want as long as they cover insulin, what's even the point of a dietitian? Obviously, diet matters. And to use this cop-out answer, as long as everything's counted, it's all good, doesn't make any sense. It proves they don't really know what they're talking about here at all. And it goes on even further, healthy choices, blah, 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 because research tells us that children with diabetes are at higher risk of developing complications. Oh, yeah, they are. And you know what else? The risk is even higher, not just linearly, but exponentially higher the further and further their A1c is. Oh, and get this. All these diabetic kids who are following your guidelines, eating whatever they want, and just taking insulin for it, how are they doing? Well, according to studies, they're not meeting their A1c targets at all. In fact, in this study, there's actually an increase in diabetics that are not reaching the A1c goals, which, by the way, are abysmal. The American Diabetes Association recommends an A1c of less than 8.5 for very young kids and less than 8 for 6 to 12. If you look at my previous content, you'll know that having an A1c of even just 6 leads to more complications, and this risk goes dramatically higher, exponentially higher with each decimal point above 6. So 8% is actually incredibly risky A1c to be at, and you're guaranteed to have complications here. And even this A1c, even this very low bar, most kids cannot reach. Only less than a third met these targets. That's insane. Something tells me something's not right there, and it's not the kids. Of course, these dietitians always blame the kids, always blame the parents for just not listening to their doctor enough, just not testing enough, just not eating quite right. When really, it's this sham advice telling kids to not eat the proper diet to managing diabetes that is causing all of them to suffer and have such bad A1c. It goes on to say that, the typical stuff, you need fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and then it says that diets that heavily restrict carbs can leave out very healthy foods and include some that are not so healthy. And it says pork rinds may have negligible carbs, but what is a better choice for your child's long-term health? Snacking on bad pork rinds or an orange or an apple? Well, actually, the pork rinds, believe it or not. In fact, oranges and apples, despite being a nutritional meme where people think it is some amazing, nutritious wonder food, actually aren't good for you at all. It's nature candy. It's full of fructose, which goes straight to the liver that has to process all of that. It's full of sugar, especially apples, which actually have the most sugar, and they're actually deplete in nutrients. There's nothing in an apple or an orange that you can't get from meat. In fact, pork rinds are far more nutritious. It was announced not too long ago that fatty pork is one of the top 10 most nutritious foods in the world. Now, of course, this is just one list, but the fact that it's being even talked about as super nutritious probably means it is. And On this list of top 10 nutritional foods, you have almonds, charmalia, ocean perch, which is a fish, flatfish, chia seeds, pumpkin, Swiss chard, pork fat. Pork fat is number 8. Beet greens, and snapper. You know what I don't see on that list at all? Any fruits. Because they're not nutritious. What they have is sugar, which isn't good for managing your blood sugars at all. It is completely pointless to be eating these fruits. Of course, it has tons of animals on it, really interestingly. And of course, hey, what's that crispy stuff right there on the top of the pork fat? Oh, that's pork rinds! Huh, weird. Guess they're not so bad after all. So another lie from the dietitian right there based on not knowing anything about pork rinds or nutrition at all. And of course she gives the typical cop-out, it's all about balance. Balance! The biggest cop-out word of them all. What does balanced even mean? It is a completely subjective nonsense word that makes whatever advice they give you sound nice, without actually meaning anything at all. Well balanced. Well, are you taking some oranges, taking some pork rinds, you put on a scale and see if they balance? There's no objective measure of what balanced is. Saying you need like a colorful plate, it's nonsense. It makes zero scientific sense at all. But of course, that's all they have is weasel words and nice sounding words like balance to make you think that you're making the right choice listening to them, while they actually don't say anything meaningful at all. And then later on in the article, it talks about when parents mention low-carb diets to this dietitian, she likes to say, oh, putting your child on a low-carb diet is not going to cure your child's type 1 diabetes. Well, shit, guess we might as well not try it at all. Doesn't cure diabetes. What's even the point? Of course. No, duh. Nobody is saying that a low-carb diet is going to cure diabetes. Nobody. But they are saying that it does help manage diabetes incredibly well. So of course this person dismisses low-carb based on a straw man that literally nobody is saying. Nobody's saying it cures diabetes. What would be the purpose of restricting my child's diet so severely when she already has her management routines down and is holding her own with keeping her blood sugars in range? Is she? Most likely not. Most likely she's part of that, 78% right here. I'm sorry, 68% that is not managing their diabetes well at all. That was probably way higher the number than that if you actually make it a reasonable A1c they have to get to. If it was 7%, I bet it'd be at least 80% of type 1 kids not hitting that. It's absurd. If type 1 kids are getting worse and worse, then why are you assuming their blood sugars are well? If the parent is looking for alternative diet approaches, why would you assume things are going well? If things are going well, they wouldn't be looking for that. Duh. And of course it ends with another fun phrase. And you can't tell me that fruit is not healthy. Actually, I just did. I just told you fruit is not healthy. It's full of fructose, doesn't have much nutritional value at all. It's an incredibly pointless food to eat. That's just going to raise your blood sugar and cause you more issues. This all just goes back to that same dogma. Fruit good, animal fat bad. It's based on nothing. Literally nothing. Honestly, I wonder if Melissa Brown, this dietitian, actually follows this advice. Maybe? I bet she does. I bet she does follow this advice. Look how well it's treating her. Not very. She's eating all the carbs she wants. She's eating all the sugar she wants. She's going low fat. And yet, she still doesn't quite look so good, does she? No matter what happens, no matter how big she gets, she probably struggles with losing weight, just like many of the people trying a low-fat approach. No matter how bad it gets, no matter how little her own dogmatic advice works for her, she's going to keep preaching it like it's gospel anyways. Honestly, I feel kind of bad for her. This lady here is another victim of indoctrination. As a result, not only is she spewing terrible advice to type 1 kids everywhere. That's killing people. But she's also killing herself. She's not going to be long for this world looking like that. Let's be honest. These experts cannot be trusted. They can't even see the truth in front of the freaking mirror. And I doubt she'll ever change her ways, even after suffering a heart attack. She'll still be the same way. She'll keep lying to herself because she's been brainwashed into the high-carb cathedral. And there's no way out of that. Unless you swallow your ego, which very few experts do. She'll ignore the research. She'll ignore the results. She'll ignore the negative impact of carbs even to herself, in spite of all the evidence. You could show her a CGM of someone on low carb and someone on high carb, and she won't bat an eye. She'll forever ignore the obvious truth, and unfortunately, she is the norm. Most dietitians are like this. Most doctors are like this. So many dietitians out there not only enable terrible food choices, but outright promote them and say low carb is dangerous. Like they'll say, oh, low carb is going to lead to low blood sugar, without any evidence at all. None. Zero. Zilch. It's just because they were told that and they believed it without ever looking into it further, without ever thinking about it. That's why it's up to us to tell the world how we tame type 1, how we do it the right way, show our results, and not let others be tricked by these carb-addicted, carboholic buffoons.